Hey everyone, it's time again to recap the latest news from the solar PV industry compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is what's happening in the wonderful world of solar for the week of March 29th. All right, San Francisco-based software company Aurora Solar has released its fourth annual Solar Snapshot report, surveying more than 1,000 American homeowners, 1,000 solar installers, and millions of projects managed by their software. According to the report, 63% of solar installers expect that the OBBBA, or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and the ITC, or the Inflation or the Investment Tax Credits termination, will negatively impact their business. Meanwhile, 71% of homeowners reported that they would like to install solar panels on their home, but 44% of those say it costs much more than expected, and nearly half didn't think they could afford to without the IRA's tax credits. 53% of homeowners agree that the power grid is becoming less reliable, and as a result, storage is increasingly being included in residential systems. 31% of installers expect that more than 3/4 of their 2026 projects will include battery storage. The U.S. grid withstood Winter Storm Fern in January without major disruption to the bulk power system, but the electric sector suffered a near miss that easily could have resulted in millions left stranded without power during that widespread cold snap. Jim Robb, president and CEO of North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, told a House subcommittee last week. Robb called the storm a classic near miss that required extraordinary measures to avoid a major catastrophe. Severe weather events place a significant strain on the already shaky national grid. The rate of increase in electricity demand is, quote, staggering, NERC reported. Summer peak demand is projected to rise by 200 gigawatts and winter demand growing even faster. While the grid managed to weather the storm by putting in place what were termed extreme measures, there was considerable price volatility across the U.S. grid as a result. In ERCOT, the highest price in the day-ahead market reached $1,900 per megawatt hour. The situation was similar in PJM, where the highest price in the day-ahead market was $2,300 per megawatt hour. That's nearly 100 times the normal wholesale electricity prices, which generally range from $20 to $40 per megawatt hour. In an unprecedented use of federal authority, President Trump's administration has evoked emergency powers to force a series of retiring coal power plants to stay open. Utilities, states, and grid operators have said that the aging plants are expensive, in bad repair, and no longer needed to meet regional energy needs. But Trump's efforts to save the dwindling coal industry have forced plant operators to continue investing in these facilities. Will Torr, executive director of the Colorado Energy Office, argued that, quote, rather than allowing the realities on the ground, the regulators and the utilities to make rational decisions about how to meet energy needs, we have the Trump administration trying to do Soviet-style central planning to push an ideological agenda that will drive costs to customers. Section 202C of the Federal Power Act gives the White House broad authority to take temporary control of the U.S. electric system during emergency situations, but until now, that authority has only been invoked during wartime or during natural disasters. All of the Trump administration's orders were issued prior to the start of the war with Iran. A report published by Grid Strategies found that as many as 90 aging plants could be subject to the emergency orders. The analysis found that keeping those plants open could cost ratepayers anywhere between $3 billion and $6 billion per year. Consumer advocates say that Trump's use of the act to overturn long-planned facility retirements is unprecedented and likely illegal, and they are appealing these orders in court. The Plug-in Illinois Act would allow access to solar power for residents who generally cannot install rooftop solar, such as renters, apartment dwellers, or those who simply cannot afford the upfront costs. The act would remove regulatory barriers to small-scale plug-in or balcony solar units. Illinois now joins 26 other states where plug-in solar legislation is making its way through the legislative process. Virginia and Utah have already passed similar bills. Plug-in or balcony solar are small solar units that plug directly into a standard wall outlet. The systems have become quite popular in Europe, where in Germany, for example, millions have already been installed. Homeowners there can simply purchase a system from their local IKEA and install it themselves in minutes. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.